Finished means it's still work in progress, but at least.
Yes. Number games. Could I invite Vikas?
You don't have to lecture this thing. Yeah, you don't have to. Yes, it's in the Indian academia. I initially wrote it because I wanted to get rid of, escape the complexities of the field. So I've been doing some field work in Northeast India, and the more I dig, I find that there's one more layer there. So I thought, let me make my own simple word in which I can change things and control them on my own. So first I thought I would write it out, and so in this, I showed you something which I showed you last year, and that was the people who studied Nagaland's or demographics somersault. So at that time I hadn't shown the comparison with Northeast India or the world average. So you see here that there's something strange happening. In this year, because we don't have provincial level data for growth rates for all countries, so I've compared the state of Nagaland with different countries. Now, in 1991, 2001, in this decade, there were just two countries which grew faster than Nagaland. Then the following year, there were more than 150 countries which grew faster than Nagaland. Either there is this change because demographic parameters do not change so rapidly. The only cases where you see such kind of dramatic changes between two decades is for instance, Afghanistan. So in late 80s and 80s, 90s, people migrated to Pakistan and then came back to Afghanistan. Or the case of the genocide in Rwanda. Now, so now in these cases, people migrate en masse. First of all, lakhs are killed in a short span of time, and many more lakhs, migrate to neighboring countries. Now, when the conflict ends, these people come back, and you see sharp changes in the growth rate. But here we have some explanation. But in case of Nagaland, the population declined dramatically despite a decade of unprecedented peace in the state. So, if this migration hypothesis, for instance, could have explained things, then we should have expected even higher growth rates now, but that was not the case. So, in a series of papers that I have written with Ankush Agrawal, Institute of Economic Growth in Delhi, I tried to examine a variety of issues that concern students of this state, the demographic state. And we have ruled out, one by one, we have ruled out we have with reasonable confidence ruled out most of the demographic explanations, migration, birth, death. And we have singled out two of them. One is politically motivated manipulation of statistics. So we are playing number games. So there are communities, and the communities are foresightful. So they see that there is a delimitation coming up in 2002. They are more foresightful than most of us, in the sense that at least their leaders, because until then the Constitution had said that the next delimitation shall be on the basis of 1991 census. In fact, the delimitation commission reports, the initial sections clearly indicate that they have done a lot of work based on 1991 census, and then the parliament midway amended the act, and they have to do it on the basis of 2000 census. So you definitely had much lesser time to do it, but still they have been criticized for not taking into account the number of For instance, aligning Panchayati Raj boundaries with the assembly boundaries, because at present we've got two roles, Panchayati roles and the assembly roles. So they said, so this and the rotation of SC seats was not addressed adequately. So you have problems, and this so you see that that even the commission itself was not sure if 2001 census is going to be used, but community leaders in that small state what seemed to be clear, and it seems that and the chief minister said that we have unprecedented growth because some communities or most of the communities inflated their numbers, keeping an eye on the forthcoming limitation. Now, if this 64.53% masks a lot of variation in the growth rate across circles. There have been circles with growth rate of 200+% in 10 years, and there have been communities or composite or miscellaneous communities which grew by 600 or 700% in 10 years. Now, this is humanly impossible. So we started looking at and the other explanation that we tried to explore, and this is very tentative, but then in absence of official statistics, we cannot go too fast. So the other possibility is that illegal international immigrants are being indigenized for three purposes: to access cheap labor force and to boost your numbers for election and delimitation. In general, for election, because these things happen every 5 years, and delimitation incomes, joins, your list of things that tempts you to inflate numbers. Myanmar and Bangladesh both. So what we did was that we looked at the distribution of price and said, what are the kind of prices that are found in Myanmar? He said, which are the, so if these types come, what are their incentives to join this or the other tribe or a miscellaneous, others. Similarly, we looked at the Bangladeshi influx, and the Bangladeshi influx actually is a very major issue here. It's an extremely explosive issue. Our national media generally, conflates it with Hindu-Muslim problem or a secular non-secular issue, but there where there is a real conflict for land, people on the ground see it in very different terms. Most of them are Christians, so it's not a Hindu-Muslim thing that that we are seeing that there is a pan-Indian problem. It's something that is happening there. So now we try to look at that, and it seems, but we have no clear evidence, because in these cases we cannot do this. I mean, no government gives you statistics of how many people have illegally come to your country. And the Home Ministry's handling of Bangladeshi statistics has always been through the prism of secularism. I'm not saying that India should not be secular. I'm not saying that that this is not a meaningful way of doing it, but I'm saying that sometimes we have to look at numbers as they are. So in 1 year, the central the Home Secretary will state that there are 150,000 Bangladeshis in Nagar, and next year they will say that there are no Bangladeshis, and then again 50,000. So there is a problem here. Now we said, okay, let this problem be there, but let me look at the census of Bangladesh and Myanmar. Now, Myanmar has not conducted any census since 1983. I'll come to this more because this point links to my presentation today. And the last census, 1983, suffered from undercoverage in the tribal areas once. Secondly, it suffered from content bias in the tribal area. So because my concern is tribal population, so even in 1983, but the census is not reliable. Now, Bangladeshi census has been conducted generally since 1974, and except the 1974 census, which was contested as being incorrect, and later censuses are more or less reliable. People say they are not seeing the actual details. The problem is that Bangladesh is so much larger than Nagaland that even if all the immigrants had come from one district, it would be a minor blip in the screen. You won't. Secondly, they don't come directly, they okay, or so this is not the qual-part-degree range, so that is a different route, but that track doesn't intersect with this track. So this is from now. So even if I want, I cannot do normalization because they first come to Assam, they take Indian documents and then come to normalization. And in fact, I find that they have more documents than I have. So I mean, this official told me that they definitely have more documents than you have. Now, having said this, so we did some analysis, a detailed analysis actually for international immigrants who were potentially being indigenized, but we also looked at the political economic story as well. So here I am just giving you a quick snapshot of what happens so here what we've done is that we tried to compare the actual growth rate shown in the census with the growth rates projected committees. So the government of India, constitutes expert committees to project population because in the intercensal period they cannot rely on the past because many of the policies think at least a decade ahead, so you cannot wait for the next census. So you see, the experts have no clue. This is the gap between actual and expert. This is the gap between actual and expert, and then there is another gap. And then this is the gap. So the experts have no clue. And the state government or the state or central government, nobody questions them. In fact, these numbers feed all the way up to the population research council in America, and that is first time that we realized that I cannot trust these global databases because they sometimes blindly copy everything from national censuses without reproducing all the footnotes words of caution. Anyway, so now what we did was we tried to correct the census, trying to insist that the census ought to be internally consistent, and whatever does not meet this commitment to internal consistency has to be corrected. So this is the corrected growth rate of Nagaland. Now this is the upper bound. The actual has to be lower because you see the socio-economic characteristics have been improving in the state. So from 15 or 20 ranking on Human Development Index, it has gone all the way to become the second ranked state in the country. And this is using the latest ITI method to take the middle groups and other things. So it's not the old one which had just one entry per education. So when the human development characteristics are improved, then there is general belief that the growth rate is or fertility is not increasing in the decrease in human development or the improvement in the conditions. So here you see gentle decline, and this is the upper limit. So now
adjustment, how do you do when you are not taking the projection committees?
So what we do is that we say that they should at least conform to the requirement that the last census population minus death plus birth plus in-migration minus out-migration should be close to the latest census population. Now and then there's something called error of closure, in which case, for instance, international migrants are not available for the data or international migrants is not available at the district. Sometimes it's at the state level, sometimes it's at the age groups are not given. So when you try to cross-check it from different groups, trying to decompose and then decompose the population, there may be small margin of error, right? So here the margins of error are huge. For instance, in 2001, the census seemed to have overestimated the rural population or the state's population by around 3 lakhs or something. And the total population declared was 19 lakhs. So out of 19 lakhs, almost 1/4 of the population was, and then there was rural-urban disparity. So then I thought, we started doing fieldwork, they talked to communities, and everybody believed that this population has been under-reported, and neighboring tribes, population has been, communities' population has been over-reported. And so I said, let me understand this, because I started doing this, and I realized that I cannot do it at the district level, I have to go at just circle level, and then I realized that I cannot do it at circle tribe level, I have to go to circle clan level. Now, they are almost all Naga tribes have 6-fold division within, even clan names are not all readily available, and even if they are available, the data for corresponding demographic groups may not be available. So in the meantime, I said, I'll go into another detail for you, but in the meantime, let me try to see if I can organize my thoughts. And this is an attempt, a small attempt, and a first attempt to do so. But before I go any deeper into this, let me say that this is not the only state with the census and delimitation interacted in the cases and led to some bizarre results. You have a number of other states. So if you see, the common thing about these are most of them have shared some international boundary. They are hilly states, or they have some tribal pockets of tribal domination. So these are precisely these special category states. We get special central assistance given their historical socio-economic backwardness, if I can use this term without any qualms. I can, and then I would have another map in which I could have overlapped the 6th schedule and the 5th schedule states map. Then you'll see that every state that appears in the previous map, either belongs to this special category state or to the 6th schedule. So Jharkhand belongs to the 5th schedule, and most of the northeastern states except Nagar and Manipur belong to this 6th schedule. Okay, so there's a pattern. It's not happening randomly. It's not a few people who got crazy and started manipulating officials' statistics. And of course, the problem was most severe in Bangladesh, which is why some of us came to know of it. Otherwise, in other states, it was much more. The state would contain it, or it didn't lead to as much, contest within the state. So anyway, so these are the states. Now, what's happening? But is India the only country where this is happening? Perhaps it's not. In fact, it's not. Not perhaps, but in fact, it's not. Lebanon has not been able to conduct the census since 1930s. Why? Because,
Because their seat sharing is based on number of Christian Maronite and Sunni, Shia.
Exactly. So, once we have that, now no politician is prepared to accept that a new census is going to reduce the share of a community. So, Lebanon, then Saudi Arabia until 1992 didn't release any census data because it thought that it would show that these Saudis are not as numerous as you would believe. It's a huge country. It's a huge country with hardly any people. So they thought it would become a site, it will attract travel models from Iran. So they said we won't release it. So 1992 was the first time they did it. You go to Sudan, one of the members of the last census commission, he writes that in parts of Sudan people inflated population, thinking that this will help them to get more sugar in the common ration shops. And see, this may be a matter of moving on to the last category. What kind of people are these who are going to messing up with the official statistics for a few extra key people have real problems and they find real solutions. They don't, and so this is now you go to Nigeria. Interestingly, census after census, if you come to know that every region has the same population share that it had in the last census. They said, anything that changes this sharing will not be acceptable to politicians. Now, so this is, and then countries like Pakistan, census has not been conducted properly since decades. Sri Lanka didn't conduct any national census in 1982-83. Now they are Afghanistan. If you go to any developing country, India may be one of the only countries, one of the very few developing countries for which you have continuous data series with just 2-5% under coverage at times, because Assam was left out 81, 91. So it's a much larger problem of because we have people inflated population because they thought it would be entitled them to get more housing, state housing. So you see, it's a larger problem, and where census has been conducted routinely, it has been deeply contested. Nobody agreeing that the neighboring community put out more people, because this has real implications. Census linked to your seat share, how much of your region is entitled in this federal redistribution scheme, etc., etc. So this is something so I gave you. So I think there is some justification to model to try to understand manipulation of census as an independent subject study. I have not listed, the sources from which I am bringing out information about national census. But one of the forthcoming papers gives you extended, list of papers for this. So you can go, it will be out in a month or so. So it gives you very extended list of papers for almost for a very large number of developed countries. Right. So I will not go into the. Now, what is literature? The literature, one of the most comprehensive sources is, Donald Horowitz's book, Ethnically.
It's okay.
Sure, please.
You mentioned that Nagaland is also high here. The number should be, this number should be reflecting in the SDP per capita. And then, so even with the high number, your SDP per capita is higher, but still you have the highest rate.
No, see, SDP per capita, there are two things here. Nagaland SDP per capita was higher than the country as a whole until 2003 or 2002. Okay.
It was national average.
Yeah. Because of these central transfers.
Okay. Despite the inflated population number.
So we corrected the inflation, and despite inflated it was above, but we corrected it and still it in fact it's number one. Because as per the economics survey, it uses numbers without checking the sources of these numbers. So they say that from 1999 it is below national average, but if corrected in a minimal sense as I have given it here, you get a better picture. But even if you take out this, even if you take out the per capita income, if you confine yourself to just education and life expectancy, still it is about the same.
That doesn't depend on the numbers.
It could not. It could not, but
There was not a literacy rate.
no, because when you manipulate things, there is some incentive to over-report literacy so that you are reaching general targets and attracting more funds. So we've done some corrections for this, and it seems that even if there is not, even if there is a large correction, it would not drastically reduce literacy rate. I mean, this goes to
underreporting is the one which attract more resources, no? Or the underreporting of literacy?
we have to meet targets also. I mean, it could work both sides actually.
No, carry on. I think I should.
Yeah. So now, I mean, is there anything from game theory on this kind of process? There isn't much, The only paper that I am aware of, is by Census, and it doesn't look at the manipulation per se. It looks at why ethnic conflicts per se can add to your fertility. So you're concerned and you're actually breeding more. You are concerned and breed more. And he says that this evidence, because I'm not a specialist in international demographics, so I cannot say that in whether, and given that I show in the RLTs, I argue in paper that census is not reliable for so many countries, cross-country comparisons are used from, but still he says that even with those data, he could show that there's some correlation between conflict and the weakness or strength of institution and fertility. So I'm not aware of any other paper which looks at this cheaper way of handling conflicts through inflating numbers, through inflation of the numbers. So I'm trying to look at that. Now, this setting is simple. This is an ethnically divided society, and there are many communities. Because I'm stressing on the ethnic aspect of it, because there could be class divisions. I'm ignoring all those divisions. I can add them, but that won't really add to the insights that it would be. Now, community is worse off if, unlike others, it does not inflate its population. First of all, its share goes down. Here, I should add that because in Nagaland, most of the communities are concentrated in a particular district. So, district-wise aid flow, is co-terminus to tribe-wise aid flow. And so that's one. And the second thing is that you also gain if there is a delimitation due to politics. Now, because if everyone else has inflated its their number, then if you haven't, the consensus will be in favor of accepting the excuse. You will be the minority. So then you feel that you should inflate. It's like now, but inflating population is a costly job. Costly because you have to drive officials. You drive officials, you have to, or they have to force to manipulate it. There is a threat of detection by the state in future. And there is a threat that the communities which have not been able to inflate, enter into conflict with you. In fact, this is what happened after the 2000 census, because not every community was able to inflate equally. Some of them went to the court, and the atmosphere was really surcharged with excitation. So the president issued an ordinance. It was court case, it went to the Supreme Court of India, and there were some 38 towns of this sitting in the court case. And they enforced the government of India to drop its commitment to do a delimitation based on its that is known to the crowd. So this is this, and then you can think of psychological cost. I'm a God-fearing person, and why did I end up doing all this? So there are losses if you don't inflate. There may not be gains, because if everybody inflates, so the population here will be more or less if you don't gain much. Now, so I said when all communities inflate, each of them incurs the cost of manipulation, and this will be detected by the state. This will be done, and in the meantime, the planning process is completely executed. So you cannot, and this happened with the distribution of job quotas among tribes, and the state was again taken to the court that how can you distribute, but then without this fresh distribution, entries would block. So there was a chicken and egg kind of problem that you cannot begin the cycle of planning. Now, so I'm trying to do a simple game model. So I'm trying to model it in 3 steps. The first step which I ignored at this stage. So first I try to model it as a simple 2-community game. There are 2 communities, say A and B, and the interaction between them is represented using a simultaneous movement. In the sense that both the communities make the choice whether to inflate their population numbers or not simultaneously. Now this assumption can be questioned, but I stick to it because the census conducted in India is synchronous. So at the same time, each district, in each village, you have enumerators doing the job. So it will be long, before you come to know how much others have enumerated. So you have to make your choice behind a kind of wheel of ignorance. You don't know what others are doing. Now, and I also assume complete information. Complete information because the communities know each other for ages. They've been interacting with each other through a very dense network of organizations, church organizations, tribal organizations, political organizations. So they know each other's thinking. It's not that they are strangers who are randomly matched to each other. Now, so each community can have 2 pure strategies. It can either inflate or may choose not to inflate. Right? You can have 4 alternatives because of this. So you can have either inflate, both inflate, or both do not inflate, one of them inflates, other does not inflate, or one of them does not inflate, other inflates. There are 4 possibilities here, and I assume symmetric ordering. See, because it will be difficult for me to, for example, anybody else should just
one-shot feeling kind of thing?
Yeah, one shot. Not exactly PD, I show you series of games, but it's a one shot because these census happens once in 10 years. It happens these same days you make your moves. So I assume symmetric, ordering of these 4 outcomes, who likes the other outcomes, because it will be difficult to justify that communities have radically different ordering of, radically different perceptions of what is valuable in the political sphere. Now, I say that, if here I've given you a small example of how communities may order, so if they say if nobody inflates, this is the most preferred outcome. If only community A suppose inflates, this may be for community A the next most preferred outcome because the other community has not inflated. There is some chance that I may go scot-free. So this second is where you have the second least preferred outcome where all communities inflate, and
That's not a pity.
it's not a pity. Where all communities inflate, and they say, but we have incurred the cost, and the only satisfaction is that we are not losing anything. Now the last is that I haven't inflated, my neighbor has inflated. This is death to me. Because this is the end of the world for me. Now, does anyone here, are all of you familiar with game theory in a minimalist sense, or should I take a very brief detour? I should. Okay, fine, no problem. So, when we have this kind of situation in which we have 2 players, so you represents that there are 4 possible outcomes. So these are placeholders for those 4 outcomes, and this side we have player 1, this side we have player 2. So player 2 can take action A or action B, player 1 can take action A, action B, and if both of them choose PB, so the payoffs to them or the something could be -1. I do not use cardinal payoffs. I stick to ordinal ones. I'll come to that later. But this just an example. So if he chooses A and she chooses B, so this is for player 1, this is for player 2. Player 1, player 2. If he chooses A and he chooses B, this is for player 1, this is for player 2. And likewise here. Okay. Right. So I begin with what I call a manipulation game or an inflation game. I'll explain the parenthesis in a short while. So begin with the ordering of outcomes I shared with you. Can be represented using this matrix, and where the 4 is more preferred to 3. This symbol is 4, not greater than but more preferred to. So you have here 2 Nash equilibria, as they say. So because I am not in a cardinal world, I do not work with mixed strategy. But if I could read this as cardinal probabilities, then I may say that that there is a mixed strategy equilibrium as well, which is Pareto inferior to 4,4. But I'll come to that in a short while. So here you have 2 outcomes. Either both of them inflate or nobody inflates. It's a game of pure coordination. If all of us could somehow agree that we are not inflating, that we cannot inflate, then we do not inflate. And if all of us believe that, but then how do you ensure on the census day? Even if I say community A calls up the community B, says that we are going to inflate, but he says that how do I verify this? I will come to know this only after 1.5 years. After 1.5 years, when the detailed community level breakups are available. So here, so these are 2 outcomes. So this is a game of pure coordination, and you can say that this game can represent both manipulation, inflation and deflation. So in the next census, both of them. Choose not to inflate. So then there is deflation because the 2 number of people will be counted, the host entries will be struck off. Now here I should explain a few things before, because I'm going to present 2 more games in this series. One could say that this is only an inflation game, it's not a manipulation game. Because they say whether you are going to inflate, if you ask somebody to answer this question, and if you ask him, are you not going to inflate or are you going to deflate? These questions will have 2 different answers because they are framed differently. So I'll do a deflation game a little later. Now here there are 2 outcomes. The interesting thing is that here you just need mere cooperation, a little bit of coordination, and you can move from this outcome to this outcome. Okay. Note that in all these ordinal games, the equilibria are independent of the relative size of community. As long as there are communities, we are fine. And I can easily generalize it to multi-community. Just that it will be difficult to show you a cube with 3 players and a 4th order cube with 4 players, but I can do it in the 3rd part of the presentation. I'm going to do that. Now the interesting thing here is that this payoff or this is the worst preferred outcome for anybody. Because if the other person inflates and you don't inflate, you sink without a trace. So you fear that you are going to sink down at risk. So this is fixed. So this is fixed. And you also know that if this person inflates and if he inflates and if you so then similarly, you know, if he inflates and if you do not inflate, then your payoff will definitely be less than in which you both of you inflate and restore the equilibrium. So these kind of considerations of mutual, you know, comparisons force you to a situation in which you have a limited set of games. You don't have because you know, if you just keep on playing 1, 2, 3, 4, you can make I mean, if I'm not wrong, 76 something different squares. Yeah. Okay. Now I say. But you could say that instead of
I think it is how come the 2-2 will become a national? It's not a national equilibrium. 4-4 will be the national equilibrium because for A, it's a dominant strategy, not in. No.
Give me a minute. No, it will be 2, 4, 4. Because when he chooses inflate, he will prefer inflate. When he chooses not inflate, he will prefer this. When he chooses inflate, he will choose inflate. When he chooses not inflate, he will choose not inflate. So there will be 2 equilibrium. Now this is the rate of superiority to this. But it could be that in certain cases. Now here your question would become important had I even worked with cardinal value. So there what happens is that you have a mixed equilibrium. Mixed equilibrium Pareto inferior to 4, but the mixed equilibrium can be interpreted as either some of the communities inflate, or if you have census 10 times, then maybe these many times, you know.
That's a different issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, so if I say that, you know, my best preferred outcome is when the other side does not inflate and I inflate. So instead of 3 to 4 years, this becomes the prisoner's dilemma that he had referred to in the beginning. In this case, you know, you straight away go, you know that this is Pareto superior, but this is not an equilibrium. With punishment, you can move here. Now, game theory is not meant to predict anything. It is not even meant to capture the reality. It's a different world itself. You may say that if things are happening in this way in the model, they may happen in a similar way in the real world. Okay? But assume that we can make that leap of, and we can make this leap from this game world to the real world. Would this game describe the reality in the world? It will not. Or it is unlikely to, because to move to the not-inflate outcome, you have to deploy a set of punishment. And having gone through 10 years of newspaper reporting official documents and court cases, I know that the set of punishment was not used. So if you want to look at the world through this kind of game, so this game is not going to represent or correspond to what has happened. This would be now there is third way of looking at it. Say that, you know, I prefer, I mean here you prefer say not inflate to inflate for sure. So in this, sorry, you prefer to inflate when the other community is not inflating, but gain. It's not only equalizing the gain, it's also getting more central funds. So if I say that my total population in the state has gone up, we get more PDS supply, etc. This is a perverse situation because this does not allow this does not leave room for any correction in future because it will lead to a spiral which will go out of hand. So I don't think, because in Nagaland this hasn't happened, so I think this also does not represent the reality. But, and there are two reasons, I have not come across a single bit of evidence which could say that, which says that the state government or any political actor inflated, keeping in mind central inflows. That's one. But one could argue that different boxes are played at different stages of this cycle of inflation and deflation. So this may have prevailed in 2001, and then this shifts to different. I wouldn't follow that rule because you can change preferences and then prove anything then. So I'd rather stick to parsimonious framework in which, without changing the preferences of players, I am able to explain both inflation and deflation. But suppose we see that string effects are strong, so we have to design separate deflation game. So we know that the government everyone knows that the government knows that you have inflated last time, and this time it will not allow you to mess up, or at least it's not going to accept those numbers for distributing state benefits. So you say, okay, so you do this, think of a burner instrument to this. These people do not really believe that correct official statistics are in and of themselves important. They simply say that it is the state government is saying that the general consensus, if I break out of the consensus, I lose. So in this case, there is one equilibrium in which they do not inflate, both of them do not inflate, and if there is coordination, they can move to deflate. And this is what happened, because you had a deflation, the state government had to conduct a long series of meetings with community leaders and political leaders to impress upon the need to we have problems with census. In this case, people are in principle believe that the official statistics ought not to be manipulated. So here the straight away the outcome is that you deflate your numbers. But I don't think that this happens. So this also, if you want to understand the world through this game, then this doesn't correspond to the reality method. Now I go to a third law. Now I say, I said people do something because they want political benefits. Here I say that I try to specify those benefits. So there are three geographically isolated communities. You already know the effects of inflation and deflation, so I'm not going to go into details. I've just worked out the inflation bit so far. Deflation can be likewise worked out. So, there's some. Should I decrease? Or are you able to see the margins as well? Because on my computer it's fine on the screen, but here it seems to be saying more. So you see, let Li equal to, the share, the legislative share of a community, Li which is proportional to its share in the state's population. So for the sake of simplicity, I've just shown two communities, I and here actually I can extend it to any community without any problem. I do so in a short while. And this is your share in the total development resources of the state. P is the overall population and Pi is the individual tribes population. You choose to inflate Ni. So total inflation will be N and Ci and I is the cost of inflation. Now your gain from inflation to tribe I, this is pi I, you can see pi here and I here, so equal to, this is your new share in legislative and development funding, and this was your old, and this is the cost. Now, I do first order condition. The first order condition assumes T tribes, so it doesn't work with two tribes. It works with T tribes. Second order condition also holds. I sum up this for all tribes, and then I assume that marginal cost is constant, of inflation is constant. And I say that marginal cost of different communities is proportional, so you can say that to add one extra number to its population coming.
When X communities share increases, the other communities share decreases.
Yeah.
So that comes something. Where does it really come? Summing up?
No, these are, I just, added all.
So you are taking it
First order condition.
only one community.
No. I have added the first order conditions of all communities. So this helps me to drop, this I. So I am able to substitute this with this here. And see, because essentially I'm trying to solve this T equation for different communities.
Initially you said you framed in terms of the incentive of one community. The first slide. Yeah. It was framed in terms of one.
Yeah, so this is, the first community chooses to inflate or inflate based on this conversion. Now each community has symmetric conversion, only its population changes.
No, there is a problem with expanding two-person games into n-person games because now the coalition problem is there. Generally, there's a possibility of others can form coalitions.
Yeah,
and
you're right.
with coalitions, I think probably some of the people think the 2%.
Yeah, you're right. But you see,
And that can work even in the real world also. For example, if the X community is known to be inflating, the strategies for the others may not be trying to inflate, but work together to see that X community is not.
No, they cannot work together to control it.
Okay, that depends on your institutional structure.
Yeah, but here you see, in a non-cooperative game, but I'm seeing, so there, coalition I can enter, but in this case, coalitions were not found on the field, but that's a point.
I'm talking about theoretically the shapely value.
No, but that should be only if I commit myself to cooperative game, but I am.
Depending on the coalition possibility.
Yeah, but that's an important point, and this happens often because people who work entirely non-cooperative sometimes ignore the cooperative aspect of it. But in this case, it was only.
I would say coalition can also be written as a non-cooperative.
You can make that.
You should not say like 2%.
No, yes. Come back to it a short while. So I try to solve first order conditions. After showing that the second order condition is satisfied, I don't impose except this marginal cost in assumption. Everything else is individual, and once you assume this, say that there's some proportionality between costs of marginal cost of inflation, so then you can show that M is greater than or equal to T. T is number of tribes, M is the total sum of these proportionality constants. I solve this, and you have here a solution which is, there are two solutions, the community I, community J, and here I compare the inflation population community I and post-inflation population community J. Now, after further solution, I get this. So Ni is equal to, so here you have Ni here, and even here there is N, because small n is equal to Ni plus Nj plus Nk. So now I come to situation where I have Ni on this side and neat equation that side, which does not.
Is that total resources coming to state is taken as fixed?
It is because the number of assembly seats is fixed and the
So that means the net gain can be zero.
net gain could be zero for this state as a whole. So for this state as a whole, it's zero. So now, some people, okay, so this says that this is it as the legislation, number of seats in the legislature increase, your population, your inflation increases, as the development funding increases, inflation increases, as the other communities' cost of inflation increases, your inflation increases, because they are not able to compete. And as your population increases, your inflation decreases. Now, it could be that there are less insecurity. But then, if you see in a parallel paper which I will about to appear in a short while, in a month or so, which I referred to earlier, in that I actually argue and I believe convincingly argue that it's not a linear relationship. The smallest communities and the largest communities do not inflate. The smallest know that no matter how much they inflate, they are going to be. For instance, policies. No matter how much they inflate, there's no pain. And think of the largest community. The marginal gains from adding few more people is much less than. So it should be a U or inverse U. But here I'm not able to show that. But I argue that and I'm sort of aware of that. Now, the same thing holds for J, K, and other communities. The key results are that told you as the common pool of fixed resources expands, inflation expands to capture that. And the extent, the interesting thing here is that the extent of inflation decreases the number of tribes. If there are sufficiently many tribes. Otherwise, if there are sufficiently few tribes, the extent of inflation decreases. Now, I'll make a few observations and then the first is that people who here government has a very important role to play to assure all communities that we are ensuring that nobody inflates. Second is that just by this, some people have suggested that to lessen this competition, we have to increase number of assembly seats and more farms. See, these things are important in and of themselves in a different way, but these are not solutions to this problem. I wouldn't say that the development funding should be curtailed or number of seats should not be increased. I say, okay, you do that, but don't be under the illusion that this is going to solve your manipulation problem. Better monitoring that increases costs of manipulation goes a long way to providing a bigger solution. Because human beings, if you assume that they are rational, and I believe as one of the shows there have been ethnic conflicts, people are not simply crazy, they are giving some kind of calculations. If they do, so they would not waste their time and energy on something that is not going to give them any real benefit or symbolic or real benefit. Now, I will discuss a few of the limitations of theories. The first limitation is that I say Ni is related to Pi in a certain way, but I do not show that that Ni is not negative. derivative demand, saying, we impose a constraint that no community deflates. I mean, in an inflationary cycle, no community deflates, and in deflationary cycle, no community deflates. So I haven't done that. One thing, reason is that I don't have specific forms for my functions. So unless I have a little more specificity here, I won't be able to do that. The second problem, which I think is so this one I can still solve, if I have more data from field and I'm able to calibrate my function and show that this corresponds to the leaders have thought about this inflation problem. So I can maybe do that. The second problem is that I have worked with NI, I mean as if NI is continuous, but NI is integer. If NI is integer, what is all this differentiation business about? I should do some integer programming to sort this out. Again, I need more structure to the functions here before I can attempt that. So I may be able to get more information and therefore impose more structure, I may not. But let me assume that I am not able to, give more information. So, but I still defend this on grounds that I am not really interested in, projecting anything or predicting anything. If I just want to broadly understand the direction in which things are moving, if I just want to understand the issue, because then I should have something like NI, the NI should be function of PI in a non-linear fashion. Now, again, the difference for that would be that what I mentioned to in that paper are primary demands for inflation. If I can use the word demand, I cannot, but I'm still using for the font better substitute. If I know that there is a primary demand, the demonstration effect of this primary demand triggers secondary demand. So in that paper, I later show that this interaction between primary and secondary demands, and then I show that there are two different kinds of primary demands. So the interaction between these two primaries and their secondaries actually make every community inflate, and this has actually been seen in the data that most districts have an above trend growth rate. Most tribes have above trend growth rates. So here again, even though I don't get inverted with this some justification, one thing that one could, the last thing that I would say in the end is that one could say that you could actually go by the logic of the perverse game in the previous slide, the perverse game. So I did that also. So I said, let me do a perverse game, model it in a perverse way and see that partly perverse. I show that you come back to this same final solutions, or I shouldn't say final solution means something else in English, but I reach the same solution only when I compare. So when I say identical solutions, I mean I come to this structure changes. But the comparison when you compare intercommunity, post-inflation populations, I get back to this even with that partly perverse formulation. So I hope someday I'll be able to do integer, use the do integer programming and then solve this instead of doing it with this theoretically untenable method of solving this until then I have to stay with it, but with the satisfaction or the assurance that this just serves the immediate purpose for which I built it out. So most of the arguments that are presented here are appearing in the press. Some of these things are new. In says that they still in stress, but some of the arguments I have discussed here today are in terms of the interpretation, the mathematics wasn't there in the early forward. I just discussed the primary, secondary, demands, and communities interact this way. So when Anil said that I could present out of turn, I thought I should use the opportunity to give a more concrete form to the argument we have today. Right? Thank you. And so the questions.
Hypothetically thinking that the government is going to put a developmental sort of drafts and policies whereby the threatened communities, so to say, the community whose number and whose numerical strength has gone beyond a particular number whereby the government wants them threatened community status, threatened community identity status, and use them grant to revitalize themselves and be able to sustain their society. Putting that hypothetical condition in your model, how much change in the moves of the
It will be a different game altogether, in which the state also makes a choice. Communities, the state makes a choice, it makes a policy choice, and in this modern business state manager, the state makes a policy choice, and then communities make the choice whether to pay or not. But I hadn't thought in terms of state supporting communities that are losing out, giving them some assurance that simple communities just have to stay there. Right? Communities have to steer that if our numbers fall beyond a limit, then we may not even in the language schedule of India. So any language that doesn't have 10,000 speakers is not reported in the Census of India. So that's an issue. So the state says that even if you fall below 10,000, the language will not be wiped off the official records. If these kind of assurances are forthcoming, it will be a different game. It will be a different game. So I have to thanks for because I hadn't thought in terms of state actually intervening in this identity game of whose state, whose identity. Because here I would assume that the state is not concerned about which community is there. So this is important, and I think states, for instance, in Lebanon, of course, it has been thoroughly unsuccessful, but still they have tried to select, three communities, one becomes the president, one becomes the prime minister, third becomes the speaker of the house, and this is for perpetuity. For eternity. So that, there I have to introduce another player, and the state has to cover it. I should do it, but I haven't done so far.
Something else that comes to my mind is it's a certain institutional structure. If I, in my and more numbers, including those who are not in that place, to the voters list, immediately there is a contestation. For example, it is very difficult for my family to add 9 name in the voters list. Because immediately there will be a contestation by the opposition party. And that contestation will, my family cannot prove that I am not a president. So it will be, my name will be dropped out of the voters. So that shows the institutional structure, true institutional structure. There is a civil society or the social response as well as the way government functions. So to some extent, one incentive of one household, one community to inflate depends on, of course, one day how can they get away with it, or Yeah, and in other case, now what is the possibility of contestation and what is the success of the contesting part? So the response, now, the incentive may depend on what the response will be. So in that sense, to some extent, I would say that the fact that everybody see inflation as a strategy with which they can get away with is also a reflection of the institutional structure. Exactly. So that means there's a double equilibrium situation there, multiple equilibrium position where or you can formalize it in the same game where the cost of this institution can also come in. So in one area where even when somebody contests it, that is not going to make much impact. So my incentive is to inflate the numbers. Or in the other case, when somebody contests, the other institutional system, another context, somebody else context, I cannot get away with it. So what makes so it's a mere cost issue here. Or the cost that the institution can impose on that community which tries to influence. So in that sense, in my mind, both inflation and deflation can come in the same structure. So that's one thing. Second problem is that I think the coalition problem is not a trivial issue. It's not a trivial issue. Again, rather than the theoretical part of it, I think if I take a real world example, we have these three communities in Kerala: Christian, Hindu, and Muslims. And there was huge grouping between the Hindus and Christians whenever the numbers and the Muslim community was great. So how do the others respond? Are they responding jointly to curtail or control the behavior of one? That can make a difference. Again, partly it could be determined by the institutional structure. So what I would try to say is that rather than, so you can bring in a little more institutional structure, the possibility of moving from an inferior institutional equilibrium to a better institutional equilibrium, where the civil society can contest. When the civil society contests, the government is forced to respond. That's one way of doing it. And similarly, a kind of, when one person, one community behaves in a way, is there a possibility that others can come together and contest it? So it becomes a coalition issue. That can bring
the state government actually thought in these terms that any institutional saying that in 2011, no census enumerator will go to a community for enumeration, will go in an area for enumeration where this community is the dominant community. So this was the admission that in previous census they went to their own communities, places, possibility, and they were manipulated. The second thing it did was that in each community, census enumerator shall be, or in fact will be, accompanied by community monitors. And the community monitors are not from any particular organization, they are from church. Not from church, it is from the women's organization, students' organization, private organization, and from other kind of organization. So it's like you cannot manipulate all four of them, and the state government, to its credit, actually mobilize support and makes almost each and every community leader, political leader, publicly say that I am against inflation or manipulation, and I request you all in the name of Christ or anyone that you believe in that, please don't give dishonest responses. So now, whenever somebody did something, tried to do mistakes, so he was shown his science statement. So I have to put a copy of this science statement of different community leaders, in which they committed that we will not do this. So they said there is a complex mechanism in which they left no room for something. Or they said, for instance, still some people thought that they can still inflate, so they threatened that after this we have the biometric, and anyone found to be missing have problem. So they try to play with the institutional structure. In this paper, I don't have the institutional structure completely spelled out. Because even with this, I am not able to do the interior.
I thought that shouldn't be a serious issue.
No, that should.
Because ultimately, game theoretical insight is not. I think you can sort of remodel the layoffs in such a way that you can.
No, I mean, I didn't happen. It didn't work. It didn't work out. It didn't. I mean, I tried to work with. I am concerned about my population here, so it becomes continuous and I can do population. But this didn't work out. This didn't represent the problem I had in mind. That's what. About the coalition side of it. See, all the censuses I know of in the third world and even the first world, I haven't come across trans-community coalition, each community to itself. It is after this census that all delimitation coalitions are made. But before, on the day of census, everyone is left to himself.
No, but is that actually an outshot issue? Because isn't there a provision for an appeal, or isn't there a provision for correction? Isn't there a provision for what is the institutional structure? For example, is it possible for a household to simply inflate and get away with it in our normal census?
No, it can because if the enumerated doesn't insist on showing up.
No, what is the checking for the enumerated?
The checking is that they are trained and there are government officials, the district collector is responsible to ensure that these things are, and they do first they do a house listing and then afterwards they do the actual listing of people. The mechanism is very vague actually. In principle, anyone who manipulates either official people, they can be punished under the Census of India Act. Right? That's one. The other thing is that after census is a post-enumeration survey. This tries to measure using smaller samples, not the full samples, the degree of under-enumeration or over-enumeration. So that's one. But census is not revised. Is only revised as a later measure in the census, because once you tell people that it can be changed, there will be no end to litigation and manipulation in this country. So there is some reason, and I've seen this happening in Nigeria. They said we are going to do fresh census within a year, and the fresh census was even more, messed up than the original census. And this happened for 30 years. So census correction, the more people know that it can be corrected, so there will be a lot of back and forth and it will lose whatever little stability it has. Yeah, Vishnu.
Sir said about the institutional mechanisms of getting the right enumeration. I think it is also to do something with the density of that area, density of population. If you look at the density of Nagaland, it won't be as high as Kerala or West Bengal or other. So this possibility is very high in Kerala and West Bengal. And the other, because I come with an example of Tripura, I work in Tripura. So in Tripura you will find one set of Bengali population and another set of tribal population. So I was also working in at grassroots level, and I also come, and there this doesn't hold true. I'm not saying this holds true for Nagaland, but if you look at the tribal trend, it might hold true as well. There will be certain population. They will be you won't be able to find them anywhere at any point in time. 3 or 4 years later, they will return back to the same place. They will be roaming around doing the June cultivation and other sort of cultivations. And what they do is, when the census comes, keeping in mind their family size and their marital other things, they randomly put the names. So that expecting in the next 5 years they will have 2 or 3 more babies, right? And if at all you are able to trace them, this is what I have come across on my own. If at all you are able to trace them and you ask for the smallest baby, they would say that, they would humbly say that this is the case, this is the reality. try, I doubt, I can talk about Arunachal Pradesh, I doubt if a person really goes to the last person's home and enroll the census. This is mostly through schools, church or other institutions, and with that happen, I mean, I don't know that there is, even if certain census has picked up, someone would actually audit what has happened. So density has to do, I think density has to do with
this is important. In fact, in my other paper, I explicitly, bring this issue that where density is less and the district is remote terrain is bad, it will be easier to inflate because officials will find it difficult to cross-check A, and B, because this is a backward area and they don't have many non-government sources of funding or support, so they value this more than anyone else, so they have extra incentive to inflate. So because, I don't really care if they open a PhD now, but they value the PhD more than I would, and therefore they will inflate. That's important. See, the one correction that church isn't approached. They keep religion out. That's one thing. Second thing is, I'll give an example from Nigeria, in which in one district, in one region of district, they found that the census enumeration sheet has 10 entries. You can make up to 10 entries, and if you need supplementary, form, you can take it and make entries there. So in one district, every family had 10 family members. Throughout the district, there was not one family which had less than 10 family members. Now this is bizarre. This is impossible. These things happen. This problem of migrant population, missing population, not there on the side. The Jammu Kashmir census faced similar problem. It was a politically explosive problem. So in 2001, they made an extra effort to contact these community leaders and say that you tell us where you will be. तुम बताओ कहाँ पे लोग इधर आ जाएंगे, but don't afterward. I don't need any political storm. See, the election booth is established in the remotest of the cities. It is right. I have personally met with census officials who've gone to remote areas and they have been kidnapped. Why are you not showing the population that we want? I said, I'm at your mercy and you're free to kill me. I'll give you my explanation, and if you still feel, then you can kill me. So, these things happen. But I think, in 2011, they did make a great effort, at least in Nagaland, to reach the last hamlet. And at least they showed us photographs of having been in those remote areas. But you see, this is a problem. This is not Kerala as an exception. It doesn't belong to India in the sense that the density of organizations there is of a different order. In Bangalore, if you know, almost a year ago, Shobha Karandalaje, she said that there are the gas cylinder connections were inflated by almost 100% or so. You see, even in cities like Delhi, density. In Tamil Nadu, again, a very literate and a very active state in terms of network organization. In 1989, there was a huge mismatch, if I'm not wrong, 10% between the parliamentary and assembly electorate. 10% of Tamil Nadu is much more than a few states of Northeast together. Right? So, these things, your point about density is important. In fact, in my paper, I look at length of this issue. In fact, what I do is that I do a regression in which I show that these circles in Nagaland, in which most villages are more than 10 kilometers from the main road, they have more inflation than the circles which are when most villages are close to the road. So there is evidence for this. But density does not decide everything. But
he mentioned water list, name addition water list and all. And it is very interesting to look at institutional mechanism because census happens 10 years, election mostly at interval of 5 years, and things like that. And the way it is organized, census and election to me are very different. Election happens all around the state. Earlier it used to happen on one particular day. All around the whole of the constituency.
Yeah.
And I assume rather than being a smaller state, election will happen on one day. But I would really, correct me if I am wrong, that census would take a longer period.
No,
It would not be in all the villages that on one particular day.
It happens on the same day of constitution.
So house listing also happens that day. Then
And house listing happens in different way. House listing happens on a different day. It takes just some cap, but counting of people happen because otherwise if they don't do house listing earlier, they wouldn't at least know how many sheets to take and how to dress the logistics. See the statistics of the government of India. I just add 2 remarks and I won't have anything else to add at this point. Is that in Nagaland we also don't look at that area of the state. So if you ask 2 different departments, they give 3 different answers. Now if these simple things and then you cannot tell me population density, then now I wonder how the government of India, does this complex integration and all these analysis. I'm not going to headline yesterday, but I'm really skeptical. But I have come across instances in which the area of the state or union territory submerged that is more than the total area of the state. Or number of people who have voted in the election are more than the total number of electors. And this is printed in the election report and nobody really says, yeah, itne log hai, how could you cast more votes? So, it happens. I mean, if I'm not wrong, it is supposed to happen when it does happen. But I'll confirm again because you raised it, but I think, it does happen the same, but I still confirm. How this thing happens on different day, it doesn't happen. Generally, there is a reasonable amount of time between the 2 activities so that they can plan their work. Election used to happen on the same day and time, but now, because of increasing democratization of India, where we have Bahubali is coming in, you cannot afford to have it on the same day. Yes,
In your modeling, you have the cost of inflation now.
yes.
If you keep increasing the cost of inflation, that is, administrative things become better and better, and the cost of inflating becomes higher and higher, the game itself will change. Because if the cost is really low, then it will be easy, it will be better for all communities to inflate, both communities to inflate, it will be easy. So they will prefer both communities inflating to both communities not inflating. Both communities inflating will be better than both communities not inflating. But if the cost of inflation is much higher, then you can say that both communities not inflating might actually be better than both communities inflating. So if you
and the class will come into
so you will actually have different games.
You see, if you keep on increasing the cost here, it could lead to a situation where the corners solution is that it is just impossible to inflate. The gains, no matter how much it will trade, the gain is always less than the cost of inflation. So if you say that anyone found inflating will be detected with probability of 1, he cannot go undetected and will be hanged. He won't go. So in this case, so you can take the this cost can go from one end to the other end. Now changing the game itself will lead to a different kind of solution in this.
I asked this before because in the first, even before you started putting the table, you said what? You said 4 is more preferential than 3 greater than 2 greater than 1. So in that you were saying 4 is a situation where both communities don't inflate. And 3 is basically in that first where you feel that both communities not inflating is actually better than both communities inflating.
Yeah, because
that is also the cost of inflation.
No, because because the cost of inflation, because even if this is marginal cost of inflation, if we have after spending all this effort come back to the original situation, we could have as well without spending this effort stayed at the original situation.
But if both do inflate, it means both will end up getting more. They may not get more in terms of percentage, but sheer absolute benefits they'll be the development fund or something they'll be getting.
So I did the perverse modeling also, and for the more detailed model I also did a perverse modeling. There is one thing. Most of the central funds, for instance, come from planning commission. This is based on the Gandhi committees or the Gandhi formula for central state distribution. There the population shares choose the 1971. The central government committed to people or the states that so Tamil would say that why are we controlling population funding is to go down. So they said no matter delimitation of central state distribution, the seat share of the parliament is based on 1971 limitation. The central state distributions in number of cases are based on 1971. But in some cases you do it on the latest maybe PDS or the thing fertilizer. I guess, but just to preclude this kind of reasoning, they have said that 1971 is the cutoff date. Even so increasingly the interstate disparities between the size of seats is growing. East Delhi or something, I think the electorate is 30 lakhs, or the population of the constituency is 30 lakhs, and that of Lakshadweep's electorate is I think 30,000. So something like not 100 differences. So I have taken into account that possibility both communities say that we have inflated and we actually gain more. So instead, earlier we have 2,2, we have 2% each, and the central gave us 2 kgs guys per person. So I had 4. Now we have 3% each of manipulation and we get 6 kgs guys. Then that will come back to this same solution. I've done that thing already, but I haven't uniquely, but I've done it in the paper. It goes back to the same outcome. In terms of
you change the game and come back to the same outcome.
When I say same outcome, I talk about the
NI and J last.
No, PI plus NI compared to PJ plus NJ. So post-inflation populations, so their ratio doesn't change whether I go with this model or this model. And ultimately it is the comparative population changes that will matter in this game. Okay?
So even if they do inflate, they will inflate proportionally or something.
It says that it would to happen in that way.
Okay, so that was. And second, when you ended up coming up with those final solutions for NI, you had certain terms. There is no way you can actually calculate. You can never statistically. You can never find out in NI is something you can never find out on the ground.
What?
How can you ever estimate? Because real data though you will never get. So you
I
can never get how much
I know that when I do this discrepancy adjusted growth rates, I've taken out NI. I have taken out suspected NIs. So I have different ways of finding out NIs. I know, I have different ways of finding NIs. So if I say community which expanded 600% between two censuses. So I say, well, now I will break you down in all possible ways. I am going to break you down in age groups, in terms of 5-year age groups. I break you down on the basis of the languages you speak. I break you down urban, rural. I break you down on literacy. I break you down all these things, and then recompose everything and see if your numbers add up. And they won't add up. There I say, well, if you are from this tribe and your numbers have increased by 100%, so why has the language that you speak, why has the number of these speakers? Or you are saying that this, so I question them 100 different ways and then try to get, and then I say, well, okay, everything in this census is matching, but why are the church records of baptism showing something else? Or why is the house tax? Because house tax you won't, nobody will say that I'm going to pay extra house tax. Sometimes people do, but when I say, so house tax will give me low limit, a very close estimate of the population. So do all possible sources of folklore and official sources, and try to see, if you just make mistake, if you make just one mistake, then that gives me an opening to play hardball with you. Then I can question you from as many possible angles. And somewhere, you cannot find all the data. Somewhere you would have made a mistake and that gives you an opportunity. But then these still are estimates. Nobody knows the truth. These still are estimates, and but the estimates, tell you a very interesting story. So it is not. There's some intrinsic worth. It's not without any.
It reminds me about the earlier discussions. For example, this is census numbers, okay? But then for schooling and elementary education, DIAS would give you a data of enrollment. And in Sarvasiksha Abhiyan, there is a mandate that the staff has to go to village on a survey to do Balganda, what they call the census of children. How it happens in the term of Nagaland in terms of census of children. Because he was asking question about HDI being higher or per capita expenditure being higher. We think that per capita expenditure of smaller states like Sikkim and Nagaland, even on elementary education, has shown us being very high than the national average also. How do you reconcile?
As early as 1971, the per capita expenditure on these people were higher than higher population. See, we compared 50 years of schooling data, school enrollment data with this census data. Interestingly, a state in which literacy is increasing at a breakneck speed, a state in which there's one more parameter that we monitored, and which was higher than the national average in terms of schooling. In that state, the gross enrollment, the number of students enrolled divided by the population of that age group is decreasing. It means increasingly more and more students out of school.
You are getting the classroom addition rate also going up and up every year.
The up and down is going down. It's not going up, it's simply going down.
Infrastructure addition is also going down.
No, infrastructure addition. See, infrastructure addition per village is not going down, but per 1,000 people will be affected at times. But at times, the investment is so heavy in some cases that despite inflation, it stays afloat, but not at the end. But once you correct for that, then the per capita resource expenditure improves a lot in that case. So I'm in the process of looking at the village data, so from circles going down and village level to see. So it's a,
when you are saying gross enrollment, you are look at both the system, public school system and private school system.
so they are saying that this, for the state, Human Resource Development Ministry, H.D. Ministry, they give the state figures.
Public school figures.
They giving. You're saying that HRD Ministry will give one public school figures.
No, that's what I was asking.
No.
Gross enrollment
For the whole state.
for the whole state, and it's both the system. And so
Because
here it's not a scenario that students are opting out of public school system and going to private.
see, the tables that I have seen, they do not say that it's only for
Public.
Sarkari schools. But they did not say this at all. Otherwise, we would have to but I don't recall having seen any footnote saying that this is only for the, because they calculate when they calculate literacy, GR, etc.
It's for both the system.
But
This system,
yeah.
and then we get the cutoff also. If you want public school and private school enrollment,
50
for the
years,
time series you get.
for 50 years, I don't know whether we have
50 years I don't know, but we look from Mumbai 50 years.
Most SSA is only a decade. So we began in 1961, 63 in that period. So we need a much longer time period to monitor the but this is a fascinating journey in the sense that you get to know the state from very close quarter and each and every aspect of the state. Because we're trying to find inconsistencies from different directions. So schooling, for instance, it goes down and then it increases. The same thing for electorate ratio, electorate divided by the census population goes down then goes up again. So those inconsistencies are there. I discussed some of them in my previous presentation. In February last year.
Sir, when your model you treat each community as a single player. You can't take it as a coalition of players.
You can, but that doesn't add to any insight. You can break down the plan, but it doesn't add to insight.
Because if you take a larger community, only the chance of, only the probability of all of them is supposed to take proportion of those who inflate within a community. If you take larger communities, more the proportion is less. Because there is more coordination is required among the larger community.
No, I get job quotas based on my tribe's strength, not on my plan's strength. So I have to think in terms of tribe. Even if I'm operating at the level, I have to think in terms of tribe. That's my understanding. But I guess that's the mistake. Think always in terms of tribe. Because there are everything is linked to say this is the reason why census and other thing that will distort social understanding or social relation. Because communities which had never before thought in terms of anything about clan and village now are forced to conform to the tribe which is much larger, which had no salience in the past, or at least didn't have the salience or the kind it enjoys. And this is entirely because of administrative act. When they said that we were going to give it on basic plans, but then the unit of thinking would have been plans in that.
And sir, this was life expectancy. Does that have any relation to the population? Like, will inflation affect life expectancy calculation? If your total population inflated, will that have any error in the calculation of life expectancy? Will that lead to not only having a higher
if you life expectancy, so if I in the other papers that I were to offer in this presentation, there I actually do a comparison of which age groups have inflated more, and most of the inflations have been in the 50 minus age group. So 50 minus 50 minus 50. So it's not above 50. No, above 50 there is inflation, but it's not as severe and as persistent as the under 50 inflation. This is
so under 50, which is it? Throughout equally spread or below 10 is more?
No, it's not equally spread in most, because this is based on a contrand curve that we plot. So in most of the cases that people do this, there is a one of the age groups generally shows some peculiar behavior. So in our case, if I'm not wrong, 35, the age group 35 shows a peculiar behavior. The age group 35 shows a peculiar behavior. Insofar as it shows that 35 and 40 or 35. Okay. So it's not evenly spread out across 50. It is more towards the lower age groups. It is more towards the lower age groups. So if I add at the lower end, it won't lead to an overall higher life expectancy. If I say that in my country there are 100 people and only these many have reached this age, but most of them are this age, so it won't directly, it will lead to, so for this a more detailed data is required on age group wise inflation and other things. Unfortunately, we don't have that available. We have urban-rural divide, we have done different tribes, different languages, we try to do, but in age group specific inflation, we haven't really been able to go far into that. Because one of the reasons is that at times the age group is not available for it. Migration data is not always available for all age groups. Sometimes we just for all groups together there is one migration figure. So that's an issue. But so we say that we try to account for migration this problem by using numbers which go against our case, and then show that even when we have taken something that goes against our case, we actually end up showing that there is inflation. So if we have taken figures which are which are the natural, the figures in these census, if you take the most conservative ones, then still it is showing inflation. If we have taken those, it's very more. So we need more detailed data, I understand, on age-wise inflation to be able to say something on life expectancy. But this is an important issue. I had a similar or related question last year in a different place in Delhi, and when I said, this is a straightforward relationship. So life expectancy is that in a particular age group, how long do you expect to live? How long do you expect to live? So one short change will not, unless we have more detailed breakup of data for different age groups, it will be difficult to see anything. But we would love to do it.
And again, the changes in life expectancy data in reporting would be governed by what sort of behavior? Would a community tend to hide the death rate within the community or something like that? In census data, you are only talking about the living members of your. It's not an ethnographic survey where when did your grandfather die last year? The census enumerator might have your grandfather's name in the previous decades census enumerator, and many times census enumerators don't know actually. Or maybe what was the report that these 10 years back?
This comes from the National Family Health Survey, sample registration system, the civil registration system. Here either death and births are recorded, or where a sample has been taken, and then to look at fertility, death, birth, and a number of other population growth rate, if we take the NFHS birth and death rate, so on and so forth. And NFHS actually doesn't give you death rate, I'm sorry. It doesn't do. It's only the SRS we are seeing. So if I say NFHS birth rate, SRS death rate, SRS death rate, SRS birth rate, etc. So we do a series of calculations there to show that, though for India the actual growth rate lies between the NFHS SRS estimates, for none of the years it lies between. It is much more, at least twice the upper bound of SRS and NFHS estimate.
But another thing is speaking conflict variance, for example, when it comes to census enumeration, do you find evidence of tendency to report higher number of youth living within the village for the population? Whereas the case might be different. Or tendency to hide the number of widows.
This has been reported in Bangladesh, Nigeria, at times even in parts of main quote-unquote mainland India. In Netherlands case, I know that in the British period, there used to be this tendency to under-report women, but I don't see it happening now. There's a British report, I think, of Colonel Shakespeare or someone or some other English name, Scottish name, where they showed that the village practically had no women. How can this be possible? So this is possible. Different countries have different taboos or considerations in different societies, and in the developing world, you do see this happening. But in recent censuses, I haven't come across systematic bias of this kind. But you come across age shipping. People reporting how old are you? So you say 30 years or 35 years. So reporting 30, 35, etc. In fact, a few days ago, I was with a Bangalore-based person who did a Karnataka study, and he found that, he said, what's happening with data? I said, age group. I said, there's spikes, there are spikes only at 35, 40, 45. Regular intervals. I said, how is it? So in fact, in 1971, India had 14 times more women aged 30 than age 31. 14 times, the population 30-year-old woman was 14 times more than the population of 31 years. So when we do analysis, we take into account age, we make these corrections, and only then we proceed to the next step. We know that this has been reported in a number of third world countries, where maybe because literacy or people are not very numerate that they will say 30 years, 2 months, 3 days. So you say this is 35. If your daughter has not been married, you say you underreport her age. And if your daughter has been, the daughter has married and she has had kids, they may be over-reporting of age. So there are systematic biases, and one has to try to figure out, where the hell these guys have played with the data. Something they are doing it, they're not diabolical. It's just that, they don't conform to Western notions of, counting or not counting. So they do what they think is correct. So you see, how old are you? I was born, I don't know, but I was born after the flood. Now there are 200 floods in this country. Which flood? Or I was born 3 years before the Great Famine. Now, his or her notion of Great Famine may not be seen as the nationally declared famine. There will be local understanding. It is your responsibility to figure out. So these things are it's a gets a birth certificate the moment he or she is born, and it's very difficult to tamper those certificates. It's not that. You can get 10 birth certificates depending one for your UPSC exam, one for your state exam, one for university. So, many people who are hugely underreported their age. And there are some people who are accidentally overreported. Teachers say, how old is he? They go over this time, 10 years, you report 10 years, and you find that you are out of job long before anybody else in your cohort. So these problems are there. And this just alerts us to the need for being much more careful with empirical research. We do not simply treat official figures as the gospel. And if the official figures are so flawed, how much weight does the private participate, which are mostly based on some strange sample studies? Here at least everything is in public. I can question each and every bit of it, but there everything is not open. So they would. Amnesty International's data on mortality due to conflicts would be from a sample which is not really representative, or it's purposive or convenient sample. So we need to give. That's all. It's not that I have answers to anything, but for this whole exercise of 2 years and 2 more years ahead of field work makes me absolutely difficult